Have you seen an opener go wrong so badly? Let me show y'all right quick. Let's get into this game right quick. In this game, white is Manuel and his rating is 2390, and the black pieces is Vincent and his rating is 2210. Yes, it's low rating. Yes, they're not elite grandmasters, but there are some core principles that I wanted to talk about going over this game. So let's get started. So the game started out with D4, F5. Do y'all know what this opening is? This opening just turned into the Dutch defense, and after F5 was played, we got the move Knight F3, E6, and then H4. Don't y'all think this is weird? This is playable. White still has like a small advantage while playing H4. Most people push up Hector to disrupt what black plan is, and this probably got black out of their opening repertoire, because after this move, black just continued on doing Knight F6, and then Manuel's like, I'm just gonna keep on pushing up Hector, going H5, and seeing what happens there. After the move H5, black continued on to fianchetto that bishop on C8 by pushing up B6. After the move B6, he pushed up the pawn one more time to H6. And then black was like, I'm just gonna do G6. What was the purpose of that? But now this H pawn is stopping this bishop from going to the G7 square, and we don't know if this pawn is gonna be a weakness or a crucial component to white's plan. So after the move G6, white just went on to continue developing normally after this by playing the move C4. After C4, black decided to fianchetto the bishop, knight C3, and then bishop B4, pinning that knight to the king. Remember, this knight cannot move now, or you'll be putting yourself in check, which is an illegal move in the game of chess. So remember that right quick. So after the move bishop to b4, pinning the knight to the king, then white decided to play bishop d2, kind of unblocking the pin right there. And then castle kingside, the move d5 was played. Now, when the move d5 was played, the smart answer for black to do was just to do knight a6, because when you do knight a6, you want this knight to go to the c5 square, give away that bishop for the knight, and then just play against white's two bishops with your two knights. Now, black in this position decided to do the move bishop c5. Why did he do this? It's nothing wrong with it. It's just black could have had a better position. You understand, right? Maybe going to knight g4, attacking this weakness on f2, maybe trying to take advantage of this pawn being pushed all the way to the h6 square. You don't know exactly what black's mindset was or Vincent's mindset was, but it was definitely to kind of take the opportunity to maybe take advantage of this pawn push, even though that pawn push, there was nothing wrong with it. And a lot of grandmasters have been pushing this pawn down whenever they feel like it, so that's something too. So after the move bishop c5, we got the move e3 that was played, and then black decided to do a mistake. Vincent pushed the pawn to f4. Why f4? E takes on f4. E takes on d5. C takes on d5. And then Vincent decided to do the move knight g4. What do y'all think about this? What are we doing here? Because Manuel, who was playing the white pieces, he wasn't afraid in this position. What do you think is the best move? I want you to pause the video right now. Not with my face in the camera, but I want you to pause the video right now and figure out what move you would play. All right, hopefully you figured out the best move, but Manuel decided to play the move bishop c4. There was a lot of good moves in this position. Let's go over it right quick. There was queen b3 and then bishop c4. That's it. So after the move bishop c4, knight takes on f2, white is in a winning position right now. Up 2 points based off the computers. So after knight takes on f2, what are we doing now? What's the main goal? Well, let's figure this out right quick. We're gonna go through the board and see if we're in control of this position or not. So let's do this pretty fast right quick. We sacrifice material, we sacrifice that f2 pawn, and either our queen or our rook is gonna be captured. King safety, I guess you can argue that our king safety is in trouble since the e file is basically open for this king to be checked. Let's just make that equal for now. Development time, I would say or argue that white has more time than black, because there's a lot of threats that we're going to figure out in the next few moves. Center control, I would definitely say white has center control. Pawn structure, I don't know. Well, based on the pawn structure, black has 2 pawn islands, so we sacrifice pawn structure. Space, I would say, there's a lot of key squares that white can jump into, even though technically black has a little bit more space since this knight is on f2. I'm just gonna give space to white because this knight can jump into e5, g4, this pawn can be pushed, this knight can maybe in the future go to e4, this queen could go to b3. There's a lot of moves that can happen here. And so this is a scary position. It's really a crazy position because you don't know if you're winning or not, especially if there wasn't no h1 or computer telling you, hey, white is winning. Could you figure out that you're winning in this position? Manuel's next move was doing d6, letting this bishop attack this king on the g8 square, and this pawn is attacking the c7 pawn. How did black respond? Black responded by just going to king h8, and then a clever move was played, queen e2. What's the purpose of queen e2? Well, one of the purposes of queen e2 is going to queen e5. All right, checking the king. There's probably some more threats too, like going to knight g5. If this knight captures this rook on h1, black is in deep trouble, because if this happens, just imagine all these threats just coming in together, or even like moving this knight to right here or this knight to right here, threatening bishop c3, queen e5, knight g5. There's too much going on here, even though the queen is on e2 that could be pinned any moment here. Not white, but black has to be careful in this position. That move didn't happen. The worst move of the position happened, which was c takes on d6, and now we're gonna figure out the combination that Manuel did. Manuel, the GOAT, the G, decided to do knight to d5, threatening bishop c3, and that forced black to play the move bishop d4, pretty much the only move to keep the game going. After bishop d4, knight takes on d4, take the free piece. Black's plan was to go to, I almost said bishop, rook e8, pinning the queen to the king. What's gonna happen next? Manuel's like, I don't really care about my queen. I sacrifice my queen every single day. So after queen takes on e8, queen takes on e8, checking the king just took the knight on the f2 square, and this is still a big loss for black, because even though the next move that bishop played was queen e4, which kind of looks scary, but it's not really scary until you figure out all the threats that white is doing right now, especially after going to bishop c3. Now Manuel is basically threatening all the discovered checks in the world. You can move this knight anywhere, it's a discovered check, and then probably another discovered check if this knight moves, because get checked, king moves g8, get checked somewhere else, take that rook in the corner. This queen is very vulnerable right now since all the discovered checks in the world is happening. And so after the move bishop c3, Vincent decided to take the knight on the d5 square. And then after knight f5, checking the king, there's not really a good move for black but to do king g8. And then the final move that laid the position to rest, and Vincent had to resign after this move because bishop d5 wins everything. If king moves to f8, you can just take the queen. And let me just show you how hopeless this position is. Queen takes, pawn takes on f5. If you was thinking that you still had this rook, you don't, because this rook could just be captured. So you would have to do a move like this, and then now I just have 3 minor pieces and 2 rooks still. You can't win that position. If this queen captures this bishop on the d5 square, knight e7 isn't playing any games, because that is forking the king and the queen. The king has to move, you take their queen, and now you got 2 minor pieces, 2 rooks against a knight and rook. You should be winning in this position altogether. I don't care if you was facing Magnus Carlsen and you're the white pieces, you should always win this position. It's crazy how this game ended. Manuel took the dub. There's really nothing that Vincent could have done. Maybe do less inaccurate moves in the opening. And this opening definitely went wrong. Once the bishop went to c5, when you didn't have to move the bishop, you could have just developed the knight. These pieces didn't move at all throughout the whole game. This is a good learning lesson on how to play the opening and how to play against somebody that isn't playing the opening accurately. And then now, for all you players who like playing d4, you can sometimes push up Hector and have a good position still. That's a good technique that you should keep in mind, especially if your opponent loves fianchettoing on the king side. So all you players who plays the King's Indian defense, hey, watch out, especially for all the players who play d4. You know what I mean? I just gave you a tip. Push up Hector. Play the opening right.